kids are going to keep dying.
And it is cheaper for us to defend the lawsuits than to actually just provide the adequate care.
But what about the culture change that's needed here? You're really not addressing that.
We'll be stuck here. We will burn up.
We've got to step in.
Hello and welcome to the King 5 Investigators December Spotlight. I'm Kristen Goodwoolley. Here at King 5, our investigative unit is committed to uncovering fraud, waste, and injustices in our community on a regular basis. We are bringing you these stories in a monthly roundup with investigations that garner results. We begin with a troubling trend with child welfare in our state. Advocates are trying to overturn a state law that makes it harder for CPS to remove a child from their home. In my series, The Cost of Keeping Families Together, dozens of experts say this law is killing children.
How many of you believe that this law is actually killing babies?
I do.
5 foster moms from Western Washington who all have a history of caring for babies born addicted to fentanyl came to King 5 with a message.
There's a big difference between reunification and safe reunification.
And right now, are babies and toddlers safe?
No.
A law aimed at keeping kids out of foster care and with parents is failing.
Do you think this is the biggest safety crisis for children in the system?
I do.
This is House Bill 1227.
In 2021, a state law was passed that makes it easier for parents involved with CPS to keep custody of their children. Representative Lillian Ortiz-Self of Mukilteo spelled out on her website why she sponsored the bill.
It's time that we start looking at the damage and the harm that we're doing, the irrevocable damage and harm that happens when we remove a child from their family.
Prior to the new law, children could be removed from parents and put into foster care when there was evidence of physical harm from abuse or neglect. The new Keeping Families Together Act goes a step further. To remove a child, there must be evidence of imminent physical harm and substance abuse. Even when babies are born affected by highly toxic fentanyl, it isn't enough to take a child away.
We're just setting everyone up for failure and loss and heartbreak.
I'll be honest, I'm angry. I'm angry that anybody thinks it would be okay to hand over a young child to somebody under the influence of a drug that we have all recognized as lethal.
Since the bill passed, the number of children going into foster care has plummeted. Since 2021, down 28%. But look at what happened as more kids were reunified with their families. Deaths and near deaths of children went up by 114%. State records show fentanyl was a major contributor to the increase, with the majority of victims babies and toddlers.
The exact system that was designed to protect these children is traumatizing them further.
And killing them.
And putting them at great risk, yeah.
So how could a baby possibly overdose on fentanyl? They're ingesting it. Police are finding that babies are picking up the pills that look like Skittles and putting them in their mouths. They're also getting their hands on foil or the straws that are used to smoke the fentanyl. And it doesn't take much. The equivalent to a couple grains of salt is enough to kill someone.
It's a reality that we face every day with every child, and it's heartbreaking. It rips at your soul.
It's really scary. Like when I know that the parents are in active use and, kids are going there.
This is one of the victims. 3-year-old Prince of Tacoma was in foster care since he was a baby. Last year, CPS reunified him with his mother. 6 months later, he was dead. His mother is accused of torturing Prince and beating him to death.
It's heartbreaking when you see over and over again that you can't get these kids and their parents back together safely, and how broken that is.
Even the lawmakers realized the Keeping Families Together Act may have gone too far.
This is a unique threat that we've never experienced before.
After hearing about the increase in child deaths, a Senate committee held a public meeting to see what they could do about it. A pediatrician from Olympia said the law needs to be changed.
These toddlers are showing up in our emergency rooms unresponsive, needing full life support, and we don't know why until we figure out that it's fentanyl. These children are dying.
This is about the children of Washington being protected from adults who are not protecting them.
A month after that hearing, lawmakers were emotional on the House floor, debating whether or not to change the law.
If your child was in a burning building, would you wait until the flames devoured it?
There's days when you can't presume there's good parents. And when these kids are dying of fentanyl, we've got to step in.
How many more children have to die?
We need to change this. You and I need to change this.
After all that, lawmakers did change the law. Now fentanyl must be considered something that puts a child in immediate harm's way. But these foster moms say in practice, it's not enough.
So if nothing happens with this law, what is going to happen?
Kids are going to keep dying, and we're going to see more and more kids die.
A lawmaker in Mason County says he'll be dropping a bill this legislative session to change the current law. And many of our stories spark public policy changes. Here's an example. For years, Chris Ingalls exposed drugs, assaults, and sex abuse inside the Green Hill School for juvenile offenders in Chehalis. Now, Governor Jay Inslee is proposing a new plan to make Green Hill School less crowded and safer. Green Hill is designed to hold 180 offenders, but currently, it's housing nearly 240. Inslee wants to move 50 of the young inmates from Green Hill to a portion of an adult prison near Aberdeen. But as King 5 investigator Chris Ingalls reports, the move may not solve all of the facility's problems.
We just got all of these statistics from the Chehalis Police Department, page after page. Nearly 200 reported crimes this year that occurred inside the Green Hill School. And nearly 24 of these cases involve employees who are accused of crimes. And local police are wondering whether anything Governor Inslee said today will fix this disturbing culture. Crimes inside Green Hill School have reached an all-time high. The Chehalis police say administrators reported 194 crimes so far this year, on pace to triple prior years. Some of those crimes are allegedly committed not by inmates, but by staff. At least 3 employees are charged in high-profile cases of custodial misconduct, having sex with Green Hill residents. A record number of lawsuits have been filed against the state for sexual misconduct. Some are recent, and others are decades old, like Sam Hawkins.
I was getting out of my room and being able to have more freedom than the other kids in the unit. As time went on, it turned into a sexual encounter.
We reported in September that the state has already paid about $4.5 million in settlements to former residents, and that number is expected to balloon. The chief of Chehalis Police, which investigates Green Hill crimes, says his department is overwhelmed by the sheer number, including 21 cases of alleged employee misconduct.
Obviously, they've got a problem with staff there. Not all staff, but some staff. I wish they would take those issues more seriously. Obviously, we can investigate the criminal side of it, but there's another side of it where staff are not following rules, that kind of thing.
But what about the culture change that's needed here? You're really not addressing that.
You've asked if there's been a cultural change. I think an 80% reduction in assaults in the last year is a very significant cultural change. We've been able to do that because we have brought in new personnel.
So Governor Inslee is referring there to a new superintendent who's in charge of Green Hill School, and the fact that in the recent months, the numbers of reported crimes have dropped fairly substantially. And that is true. However, local police are concerned that maybe Green Hill is simply not reporting incidents, something they've been guilty of in the past. In Chehalis, Chris Ingalls, King 5 News.
Firefighters from across the state are taking charge to try and help with Washington's insurance crisis. Homeowners from across the state say they are being unfairly dropped by insurance agencies due to the wildfire risk. In this next story, I'll show you how firefighters are trying to change this decades-old rating system used by insurers to cut people off.
It went up and over this house and landed out here.
Despite hearing an evacuation order for the 2021 Ford Corkscrew fire north of Spokane, John Lowe stayed and fought the wildfire, charging over this hillside and towards his home.
It went up and over this house and landed out here like a tsunami of fire. Hardy plank.
His home, outfitted to withstand wildfire, is among the 48 saved by the Stevens County Fire Department. It's a well-trained outfit that rolled up Lowe's driveway as fire closed in.
So this is Tender 9, affectionately termed the Beast.
Stevens County Fire Chief Mike Busey says they have a great record of success. His team fought 41 wildland fires this season, no homes burned, and that's an average.
It's almost criminal not to include fire district capabilities in that matrix. It would help level the playing field across the state.
If you'd like to take a deep dive into this coverage crisis, we have a 30-minute special that talks about the problem, who's impacted, and potential solutions. To learn more, text the word coverage to 206-448-4545. The King 5 investigators will bring you stories you won't see anywhere else. In November, we exposed that Washington state lags far behind any other state in the country when it comes to how city and county jails operate with humane standards. As Taylor Murfin-Dresky reports, Washington's jails make up their own rules, and experts say that's leading to unconstitutional suffering and unnecessary deaths. Every day,
I'm in unbearable pain.
These messages weighed on Janelle Rainier-Briggs of Lacey.
No one has checked on me at all.
Her son Kanan wrote from the Nisqually jail while he was in a medical crisis.
No doctor in the facility today.
As he was serving time for violating his probation, Kanan complained of debilitating pain. He had an aneurysm near his eye. But the family says he didn't receive the medical care he needed.
I asked the CO, there's no doctor here today. They haven't had a doctor here in weeks. I was scared that he would not come out.
The city of Lacey, which contracts with the Nisqually tribe for jail space, assured Janelle her son was getting taken care of. She wasn't buying it.
So I'm asking you to consider moving my son to a facility where he can get the medical and mental health care that he needs.
And when that didn't work, she contacted lawyer after lawyer who told her,
please call us back if he dies. And I was hitting dead ends and I was scared. And who else can I call?
For families with loved ones struggling inside one of the state's 50-plus local jails, there are few places to turn. The King 5 investigators found Washington law lacks statewide jail standards and oversight measures.
It means every jail operates according to its own standards. They decide what they're going to do.
And data shows inmates may be paying the price. According to the latest federal records from 2019, Washington had the 4th highest death rate of local jail inmates in the entire country.
And people are being tortured actively in our jails. I know this. I see it every day.
Corinne Sebrin is a civil rights attorney.
Accountability is very, very difficult to achieve outside of a lawsuit or outside of a reporter.
From one end of the state to the other, the King 5 investigators have exposed the lack of oversight affecting inmates. In 2022, we showed at the Forks Jail in Clallam County, a jail guard went unchecked as he sexually abused 5 women he was charged with protecting. This year, we found unqualified medical staff treating inmates in multiple facilities led to tragedies, like Javier Tapia losing his leg at the Pierce County Jail. And in rural Garfield County, near the Idaho border, jail conditions got so bad, the county closed it down altogether. But not until it was too late.
It's just inexcusable.
The jail was located inside the centerpiece of downtown Pomeroy, this historic Garfield County courthouse. But in the basement, this is what the Garfield County Jail looked like.
It was like a dungeon.
Dilapidated, neglected hallways leading to the cells, including this one where Kyle Lara died in 2022. He was awaiting trial for a domestic violence charge. County records show he was a known suicide risk, someone who needed constant oversight. But instead of corrections officers keeping a close watch, the county tasked civilian 911 dispatchers with the job. They were supposed to monitor inmates through these cameras while they juggled other duties.
They never looked to see if he was okay.
Kyle Lara has hung himself.
This is a recording of a county phone call after they found him.
He's been dead several hours, it looks like.
Holy crap, how'd that happen?
Yep, I can't say.
It was more than several hours. According to police records, after Lara died, no one noticed for more than 18 hours, as these photos show jail staff served Lara 2 meals while he was already dead.
If there was a state body who had done an audit of this jail, there is no possible way that the Garfield County Jail would have passed.
The Garfield County Sheriff who managed the jail didn't respond to our attempts to get his side of the story. County Commissioner Jim Nelson told us the small county needed more resources, but was a safe place for inmates. In more than 100 years of operation, he says, using civilians to watch inmates had been effective. Earlier this year, Garfield County settled with Lara's family for $2.5 million. And they agreed to keep the jail shut.
It's too late.
2 decades ago, Tammy Bragg was one of those 911 dispatchers monitoring inmates.
What lessons do you think people can learn from your small community? What happened here?
That if somebody doesn't do something, this is just going to keep happening and happening. We need standards.
At least 26 states have statewide bodies that have mandatory oversight of local jail conditions. And Michelle Deitch, a nationally recognized corrections oversight expert, recommends the same for Washington.
A lot of sheriffs feel like this is their domain and they don't want some outsiders coming in. But in fact, every public institution needs to be answerable to an outside body.
This wouldn't be new for Washington. In 1981, the state created a jail oversight board with the power to set and enforce standards. The federal government pointed to Washington's system as a model. But 6 years later, lawmakers nixed it.
It does seem like someone somewhere did the math one day and said it is cheaper for us to defend the lawsuits than to actually just provide the adequate care in the first place.
Kanan Rainier is now out of jail, but his mom says he lives with trauma from his medical crisis behind bars. And she says she's got her own trauma from that isolating fight to help him.
It's like watching your kid drown and not being able to help them. I expected there to be people responsible.
Last year, a state task force took a deep dive into Washington jails and concluded we need standards and accountability. But a bill that would have created that oversight failed. Inmates and their families tell me they're hoping lawmakers reconsider this issue when they're back in Olympia next year. In the newsroom, I'm Taylor Muir-Fendereski, King 5 News.
Kids can't learn on an empty stomach, but a King 5 investigation found that students in many school districts are being shorted on their lunch. Chris Ingalls reports on the school lunch crunch, the shrinking lunch periods for many Washington schools.
At this Everett home, the school day is over. And an after-school routine begins for mom, Amber Ortega.
Do you already have a snack?
It's not homework or TV time. Every day after school, she needs to feed her hungry kids.
How was lunch?
I had to eat my pizza really fast at school.
6th grader Rose, who is 11,
But I'm mostly used to it.
and her 8-year-old sister, Mabel.
You only had time to eat your sandwich? What else did you have that you wanted to eat?
Applesauce.
Don't have time to finish their lunches at school, according to mom.
When my kids come home and complain about not being able to finish their lunch, it usually always just boils down to not having enough time.
It isn't just one family. On an Everett School's Facebook page, parents called the short lunch hours ridiculous, frustrating, and chaos and bananas. Do you get enough time to eat your lunch?
Not really. I usually get like 5, 6, or 10 minutes.
Mabel has to stand in line, eat her food, and clean up during a 20-minute lunch period. Experts say that's not long enough.
And what our research shows is that when kids have 20-minute lunch periods, they eat significantly less of their lunch on average compared with kids that have longer lunch periods.
Dr. Juliana Cohen is a nutrition researcher and Harvard professor who studies school lunch times. Her team visits lunchrooms and uses stopwatches to calculate seat time.
They're there measuring how much time do kids actually have to eat their lunch. When kids have longer lunch periods, they go back to the classroom more refreshed and more able to learn.
I have a stopwatch here, Rose. I gave this to you a couple weeks ago. And what did you do with it?
Once I sat down at lunch at school, I would start the stopwatch.
With that stopwatch ticking, Rose measured her seat time at Evergreen Middle School, where the lunch period for her 6th grade class is only 15 minutes long.
And then stop it whenever a teacher said 2-minute warning for cleaning up. So it would show how long I got to sit and eat lunch.
What was the shortest time you had to eat lunch?
I think that might have been 8 minutes and 21 seconds.
8 minutes and 21 seconds to eat lunch? Was that long enough?
No.
Over 2 weeks, Rose's seat time at lunch averaged 10 minutes and 22 seconds a day.
I was a little bit surprised of how short it was.
We'd be welcome to hire her as part of our research team. Sounds like she's an expert as well.
Do you want mashed potatoes and gravy?
Dr. Cohen encourages schools to push their seat time to a minimum of 25 minutes, which usually means a 30-minute lunch period. But we uncovered how rare that is. The King 5 investigators surveyed 31 school districts in western Washington. Schools, even in the same district, have varying lengths of lunchtime. We recorded the shortest. Schools in 5 districts have at least 25 to 30-minute lunches. 5 other school districts, including Kent and Tacoma, didn't respond to our repeated requests. 19 school districts have lunches as short as 20 minutes, mostly in elementary schools. And Stanwood, Camano, and Everett have the shortest, only 15-minute lunches in some schools.
Our 6th grade class here at Gateway this year is bigger than it has been.
Matt Bennett is principal at Gateway Middle in Everett, where the 6th grade class is so large, the lunch period is split into 2 15-minute sessions.
So half the students will have free time, while half the students eat, and then they switch.
Do you think kids have enough time to eat in your school?
I do. We still manage to get through all of our students, and they have ample time to buy their food and eat their food before that free time.
How do you respond to that?
Especially with 20-minute lunch periods, those kids at the end of the lunch line, we often see they have 5 minutes or less to eat lunch.
You're welcome.
Administrators in some districts admit to us they're now having a harder time scheduling lunches, especially in elementary schools, where a new state rule requires 30 minutes of recess a day. Lunch is the one period administrators can bend to fit schedules.
There's always food getting thrown away and wasted.
There's one other thing that Rose tracked for us: the food that kids didn't have time to eat. Things like strawberries, grapes, apple slices.
I would mostly see a lot of fruits or vegetables. Mostly the things that people won't want to eat as much.
All the nutritious food got thrown out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That means carefully designed and costly healthy school lunch programs are getting trashed.
That's it for the King 5 Investigators December Spotlight. We'll be back next month with more investigations. In the meantime, if you have a tip for us, email us at investigators@king5.com or scan the code on your screen. I'm Kristen Goodwillie, and on behalf of all of the King 5 investigators, thank you for watching.